Today we're going to be looking at conjunctions. These are the words that show the relationship between sentences. I will also talk about when and where you need to put the comma. So this video is great for those who want to improve their speaking skills a little bit, but even better for those who really want to improve their writing skills. We're going to start with the word and. This word is used to add information. For example, I'm going to study English and Arabic. I enjoy reading, listen to music, and exercising. As for commas, when you only have two things in the list, there is no need for a comma, such as she is smart and funny. However, if there are three or more things in the list, you can choose to add a comma or leave it out. A quick note, when you do use a comma, this is often referred to as the Oxford comma. For example, both of these sentences here would be correct. Here's another tip to help you understand when and when not to use a comma in your writing. If there are two independent clauses, you need to put a comma before the word and. An independent clause is an idea that stands on its own. With or without the word and, it makes a complete sentence. Both of these sentences stand on their own. However, don't use a comma if one of the clauses is a dependent clause, such as I downloaded the file and saved it to my computer. The second clause, saved to my computer, does not make sense because we don't know who did the action. This clause needs the first part for it to make sense. So in this case, you do not need to use a comma. Let's move on to the next word, which is or. And this is used to show another option. For example, we can see the film at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. Or you can take the test now, or you can take it next week. When and where you use a comma is similar to and. When you only have two things in the list, there is no need to use a comma, such as we can go now or later. However, if there are three or more things in the list, you can choose to add a comma or leave it out. For example, next month you can come to the office, work from home, or do both. And again, if there are two independent clauses, you need to add a comma before or. This is because each part stands on its own. For example, they might go abroad this year or they might stay local. However, do not use a comma if one of the clauses is a dependent clause. For example, they might go abroad this year or stay local. The second clause is a dependent clause, so it doesn't stand on its own. And without the first clause, it doesn't make sense just saying stay local. This means you don't need to put a comma. Let's move on to the next word, which is because. And we use this to provide an explanation. For example, we were happy because the weekend was almost here. Or, I can't go home because I have a ton of work to do. Generally, there is no need to put a comma when using the word because, which makes it easy to remember. This is because the reason depends on the independent clause, so there's no need for it. However, you might need to use a comma if it means the sentence will be clearer and less confusing. For example, they didn't go out because of the weather. In this example, the meaning can be confusing because you can understand it as they didn't go out because of the weather. It is because they were tired. However, you can clarify this sentence by putting a comma before because. This emphasizes that the weather is the reason they didn't go out. They didn't go out because of the weather. If you want an alternative to because, you can use as and since. They are a little more formal than because and place more emphasis on the result rather than the reason. For example, since it's so hot, I don't want to go out. Or as it's so hot, I don't want to go out. You will often find since and as beginning a sentence. And you'll also notice that with since, you need to use a comma. However, with as, you do not. The next word is but, and we use this to show contrast. For example, English is fun but hard. Or I want to study English, but I don't know how. As you can see, the same rules apply with the comma. In the first sentence, there is a dependent clause, so there is no need for a comma. However, in the second sentence, there are two independent clauses, so put a comma in there. There are also other words that you can use instead of but. And these are yet and however. Yet can be used in exactly the same way as but. However, it does feel a little bit more formal. So you may see this more used in writing rather than speech. For example, English is fun, yet hard. Or I want to study English, yet I don't know how. Next we have however, and this can be used in a similar way to but. For example, I want to go abroad this summer. However, I don't want to go anywhere hot. Or I studied really hard for the test. However, I don't think I passed. You'll notice that the punctuation is different in both cases. In the first example, however is used at the beginning of the sentence. When you do that, you have to put a comma as it becomes an introductory word. In the next example, however is used in the middle of the sentence. In this case, we have to use a semicolon and a comma. This is because it becomes a conjunctive adverb like furthermore, meanwhile, or nevertheless. So in these examples, both would be correct and both have the same meaning. If you put however at the beginning of the sentence, you need to put a comma after it. If you put however in the middle of the sentence, you need to put a semicolon and a comma. There is a sentence where you can use however with two commas, and it's used in a sentence such as this. He doesn't work in an office. He does, however, own his own business. Or, my grandparents don't like to do a lot of exercise. They do, however, go for long walks every day. When we use a sentence structure like this, then we can put a comma before and after however. You can use the word but in your writing. However, try to mix it up by using however and yet. They can make your writing more professional, and it's especially great for essay writing or business proposals. Let's get to the last word today, which is so. And this is used to show the result of something. For instance, it's really late, so I'm going to bed. Or, they won the game, so they are going to the final. And he studied all weekend so he could pass the test. In the first two examples, you need to put a comma, but you'll notice in the last one, there isn't a comma. But why is this? Well, in the first two examples, you can replace the word so with therefore and get the same meaning. That means you need to use a comma. However, if you try to put so that in the sentence, it doesn't really work. For example, it's really late, so that I'm going to bed. Or they won the game, so that they are going to the final. When we use so that in a sentence, the second clause becomes a subordinating conjunction. This simply means that the second clause in the sentence needs the first clause for it to make sense and for it to be a complete sentence. Some examples would be, I went to the gym so that I could exercise. Or, I moved to the city so that I could find a new job. And I'm going to wake up early so that I can go for a run. You can use so or that interchangeably with the same meaning. However, if you use therefore in these examples, it doesn't make sense. If you have any questions, please put in the comments below. And if you have anything else you'd like me to cover, please let me know. Thanks and see you next time.